Hi, everyone. This is Sebastian Traeger, Managing Director with Reliability, and we are back with another episode of Reliability 4.0. As always, we're on a mission to make the world a more reliable place. And today, we'll be joined by Matthew Knuth from SPM Instrument. We are thrilled to have him discuss all things reliability with us and condition monitoring. So, Matthew, thank you for joining us. We are thrilled that you're here.
Sebastian, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here as well. I appreciate the invite.
So just to kick off a little bit, tell us a little bit just about what SPM Instrument does and how you ended up there, how you got there.
Sure. So again, my name is Matt Knuth. I'm the business development leader for SPM Instrument in USA and Canada. Quickly, a little bit about me. I'm pretty excited to say I'm celebrating my 25th year in condition monitoring and asset reliability. What I like to do is I like to leverage that experience to implement and improve condition monitoring and reliability programs for major industrial and commercial facilities across North America by hopefully helping customers help folks implementing intelligent and tailored solutions. Very briefly, SPM Instruments is a family-owned company, which is a bit of a unicorn in the condition monitoring space these days, right? As you see different companies getting bought out and merging together. But again, we're a family-owned company out of Sweden, Strängnäs, Sweden, and going on 60 years in business as a global leader in condition monitoring and process optimization. You know, the thing that really sets SPM apart is that, again, being a family-owned company, all our R&D, all our manufacturing and support is in-house. And we hold the latest advancements in vibration analysis and process optimization with our HD technology. So it's a real blast.
That's great. I always like to ask folks about their origin story. And so
Sure.
You just mentioned 25 years in condition monitoring. What is your origin story? How did you get involved with condition monitoring 25 years ago?
Well, I'll try to keep it brief for you. So out of high school, went into the skilled trades. I went to tech school for automotive technology. I did that because I come from a long line of automotive mechanics, if you will, and business owners, and I've always been into racing and whatnot. So that's what I did. I kind of just followed that. Spent a couple years in that industry. I went back to Fox Valley Technical College here in Appleton, Wisconsin, and went in for electromechanical engineering. And then I made the jump. Actually, a family member had said, "Hey, why don't you come work by me?" Which was another family-owned company that did industrial repair, right? So motors, gearboxes, pumps, that kind of thing. So it was an easy transition, right? So I started doing that, and then I guess the rest is history. I got involved with the field services group, and over time, I ended up becoming the supervisor for that, and I spent 23 years there. You know, just implementing reliability and condition monitoring programs for just hundreds of major industrial and commercial facilities. And I've been with SPM now for the past 2 years.
Great. Well, it's great to hear that. And so out of curiosity, do you still race? Do you still work on cars?
No, I don't. You know, it's one of those things. I made another jump. I've been in aviation for a few years now, so I like to go flying, and that's a passion of mine. So I switched from automobiles to airplanes.
Okay, great. What's the best flight you've ever been on, do you think?
Oh boy, I think the best flight I was ever on was about 2 years ago when the airplane that I currently own, I bought from a wonderful person out in Hartford, Connecticut. So I flew commercial out there and I picked it up, and it was a beautiful day. And I flew down the Hudson River through Lower Manhattan, out the Atlantic Ocean, turned back around, and then flew another 9 hours home. Got to fly the Chicago skyline at night, which is absolutely gorgeous.
Wow.
So that's probably been one of my favorite flights.
That's great.
My very first flight in that aircraft.
Well, that's fun. What a great time. I've been able to make that same flight in a flight simulator. So not the real thing, but yeah, still good fun. Well, you know, one of my questions could be something you like to do outside of work. Obviously, flying planes sounds like quite a passion of yours.
Yeah, it is. That's really what I enjoy doing. You know, my wife and I have 3 young children. We like to do that. You know, besides that, we just love the outdoors, being here in central Wisconsin, camping, and traveling, and going on flying adventures here in the summer when everybody's home.
So you'll pile everybody in that and go on a trip.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's great. That's neat. Well, great. Well, let's dive back into your work in reliability and condition monitoring. So one of the things I like to talk with folks about is just goals and KPIs, because I know it's so important to know what it is you're going after in order to accomplish it. So when you're talking to folks about condition monitoring or reliability in general, what are some of the KPIs or the goals that they have for partnership with either your company or just what are the goals that they're trying to accomplish?
Well, as far as KPIs go, I do hold certifications through SMRP, so I like to deep dive into that stuff as well, the reliability
Okay.
engineering side. So when I go in, I don't try to just talk about vibration analysis right away or any other kind of technologies. I like to dive into that side of it a little bit. So when it comes to KPIs, I mean, being that I'm not a reliability engineer in-house in a plant, right? So
Mhm.
I do like to bring to their attention if they're not aware of it, KPIs such as the basic ones, right? Mean time between failures or mean time to repair, OEE, uptime. I like to speak with folks about that, along with some of the reliability, availability, maintainability, safety type stuff. I like to show them how you can develop an amazing condition monitoring program by simply communicating with cross-functional teams and not operating in silos. So that's one of my passions is either speaking at conferences or being invited in-house and try to bridge that gap between the
Mhm.
different departments and help them achieve their missions and visions with their reliability programs.
That's great. As you again talk to clients, customers, what do you see as kind of top challenges they're facing, top priorities? What's kind of on folks' top three list right now?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is there's a lot of consumer confusion due to all the crazy marketing that's out there right now, right? So I don't know how much you dive into condition monitoring world, but up until about 7 years ago, not much changed very quickly, right? You had your portable analyzers for vibration, anyways. That's I speak on vibration a lot because that's my background, And then there was the thermography, right? And motion amplification is probably the newest one, and ultrasonics and shock pulse and that kind of stuff. But with the influx of the IoT that's coming out, it's kind of turned condition monitoring back into the Wild West. So a lot of people are just trying to still navigate that whole thing, the Industry 4.0, the IoT. So unfortunately, many CM programs are now implemented from the top, from C-suite, without collaboration from the shop floor or operators and engineers. And honestly, it leads to many problems. I always preach that everyone needs a seat at the table, or you just end up just on that hamster wheel, right? So I always tell folks, education, education, education.
So you almost look at it like one of the biggest challenges is not the technology or, but really just people getting their hands around change and change management and making sure management or leadership is including folks throughout the organization to make decisions and to implement solutions.
Absolutely, right? I mean, change is inevitable. Change is good. Technology is good. But, I think too many people, when they quickly or just react and implement something without doing their homework, it just doesn't end well, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say, right? I mean, what do they say? Change for change's sake isn't good. So again, it comes back down to the mission, the vision, what do you want to do, and looking at the big picture.
It's good. You mentioned just a lot coming out into your space. So I want to ask some questions about innovation and
Mm-hmm.
in condition monitoring specifically. As the world moves more towards AI and IoT and IoT creating a lot of data, AI, of course, providing a tool set that can analyze it more quickly than ever and make sense of it. What are some of those innovations that you're seeing out there that you're either most excited about or most skeptical of as folks are trying to navigate this?
I'm excited about it all. I love the tech space. Like I said, up until the last 7 years, nothing changed quickly. We only had a few data analyzers to choose from, right? And that's what we did, either as in-house vibration folks or outside contractors. And like I said, now there's this big influx, and I think the pandemic helped that, right? With people getting nervous about not being able to collect data and things, and the lack of subject matter experts that are out there as people start retiring out, right? And we see less people getting into the skilled trades. Again, I'm excited about all that new tech, but again, people need to realize that it's a tool. It's not a silver bullet, right? And there's not a one size fits all approach. And that comes back down to your last question. When I was stumbling around that question a little bit to find the right words, is that, ensuring innovation without compromising reliability? Simple. We got to take baby steps, right? Again, it comes back to have a mission and a vision, do your homework. All that data, the big data, is more data always better? Well, being that I've been in the space for 25 years, I'm going to say not always, right? I always say no one needs more data. You need to make sure you got good, relevant data. I see too many companies end up in these pilot purgatory, or another phrase I like is graveyard of ideas or shiny object syndrome, right? Again, that a lot of that is because not everybody's got a seat at the table. There's a lack of communication, and companies are told, hey, we need to get on board with industry 4.0, or like you said, the big data push, or we have to do something. So the low hanging fruit, the easy thing to do is just throw sensors on things, right? And as I like to tell people, as in the reliability world, you can't maintain yourself to reliability. And I like to tell people you can't censor yourself to reliability.
It's good. Have you seen any tools or technologies deliver on some early value, either in AI or with the data? Is there something you see promising, or are you still waiting to see the sort of killer app come out in your mind?
I haven't seen it. There's a lot of people talking machine learning and AI.
Yeah.
And I think that stuff's great. I just think it's being used again incorrectly. I've yet to see I'm gonna use the vibrational world. I've yet to see a company or a software completely just make decisions based on AI.
Okay.
But the terms get thrown around a lot. Will AI help out? Absolutely. Absolutely, it will help out with like being able to acquire data and stuff like that. Do I think AI's got a place in every spot of condition monitoring? Absolutely not, right? And that's that disconnect when you have folks designing equipment who have never stepped foot on a plant floor, right? And that's not a dig on that, but that's the world we live in, right? You have tech companies that build sensors, and then you have companies that are made up of condition monitoring people, and then you have the boots on the ground, right? So you got to find that happy medium. Again, going back to what we were speaking before. What's your mission? What's your vision? What's your asset? You always got to look at it from how we look at things on a reliability standpoint, right? Asset criticality. If you're not doing a criticality analysis or looking at any of that stuff, and all you're doing is just throwing sensors on everything, well, AI, ML, and IoT is just going to accelerate yourself down to the bottom.
Good.
I mean, that's my take on it. You gotta do the basic things well, right? And you gotta put in the work. You really do.
It's good. In terms of your role, again, either specifically at your company or in a previous world, what would you say are kind of tools that you find indispensable? So if you're talking to any reliability engineer or anyone doing condition monitoring, what are tools that you would say these are really indispensable in your job? You just need to know these, use these. These are some of the things that are going to deliver the most value.
Oh boy, that's a good question. Well, the first one I'd say it's certainly not underrated, but it's indispensable is knowledge and experience, right? From having boots on the ground. To me, that's number one. Tools is having people that promote education, continuing education, or taking the younger folks under your wing, right? To learn some of that tribal knowledge. To me, I'm all about that. Yeah, the technology, yeah, there's, tools as far as reliability, of course, any of the tech out there, right? As long as you're using it correctly and you know what its limitations are, the pros and cons of each tool, that's perfect. But again, it comes down to knowledge.
Right. Well, you've touched on that a couple of times. So when you talk about education or knowledge, how would a company, like how much either percentage of time or courses, how do you allocate the time if you're a busy plant manager and you care about reliability, but you also care about delivering on and executing around the deliverables you've promised? What would you say is the amount of time or courses or whatever metric you want to use for allowing your team to gain additional knowledge or training or education?
Great question, right? So I think that's one of those questions, like I always joke around, if you go in a mill and you ask 100 millwrights how to grease a bearing, you'll probably get 100 different answers, right? But for what worked for me, um, when I worked with the group I did in the field service, what was successful for us is before we'd even send anybody to any kind of formal schooling, right? We'd take them under our wing for a couple years and just get them out there doing it, going through the motions, getting on the plant floors of different things, seeing the nuances of paper machines, the nuances of the machines running in plastics, right? Extruders. You know, a lot of people think rotating equipment is just rotating equipment. Not the case, right? So for me, it's finding somebody who's willing to learn, get them out there for a couple years, get them into some kind of formal training. So that way they're not just sitting there, because a lot of times, you know how it is. You'll sit in here and sometimes it's taught by an engineer who's talking over your head, right? And the light bulb just goes dimmer and dimmer as that 4-day seminar goes on. Everybody's sitting around saying, "Did you understand anything that guy said?" And everybody's like, "No." So again, hands-on, get that formal training. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No, that's good.
But and just get out there doing the basics well. Listen, we got to do that. We got to get more folks into the skilled trades, or bring them in and get them under our wings.
Great. Because of course we do this as a company, I always have to ask folks, how does RCA play into your all's work? Is it important? Is it not important? Where does it fall in that workflow?
Root cause analysis? To me, it's huge, right? I mean, to me, that's part of that indispensable that you talk about. So for me, if I'm doing condition monitoring, right, and I find an asset, a gearbox or a bearing or something that fails, what good is it just to put out a report to a customer or to your plant manager or whoever you report to say bearing failed, replace bearing, right? To me, RCAs and failure mode and effects analysis, all that stuff is so huge, but so many people don't do it, right? I mean, I could probably interview you on it, on how many people actually do that outside of their condition monitoring, right? A lot of people are just using condition monitoring as, hey, find this thing that's wrong and keep it from failing. Yeah. And that's such a poor practice, right? I mean, and that's the biggie. That's the part that lives outside the AI. That's the part of our world that AI and ML will never be able to touch, in my opinion, is having that hands-on, opening up that asset, right? And actually using your knowledge in your industry to say, here's why this failed. And again, that comes down, again, like I said, communication, right? I just spoke on this down at Reliable Plant. You got to bridge that gap. You have to have the condition monitoring people speak the same language as the reliability engineers and as the same language as the operators and production people, right? Everybody's got to have a seat at the table. For too many, for 2.5 decades of my career in there, I've seen so many people just not have a seat at the table who should, who could have really made these programs thrive.
That's great. That's helpful. I always like to ask a final word. So what's kind of one thing in your area of expertise that you want other reliability engineers to hear? If you're kind of like, hey, the one thing I think you need to know is X, one way to share expertise, it could be a simple, like, return to the basics. It could be very detailed, more advanced. I'll leave it up to you. But what's kind of that one thing you feel like you would want to impart based on your expertise to other engineers?
Well, to the reliability engineers, I would say, again, step across the hallway and have a cross-functional teams with your reliability guys, right? Work together and just make your plant flourish by, you have the engineering background. These guys they're around this equipment all day long, work together. Again, I think if you're doing the basics well and you have a reliability culture in place that's striving to do things the right way, then everybody's going to be okay. If you don't, right, and you're simply just moving into what we were talking about before, the digital world, it's just going to accelerate your ride to the bottom. So I really think, again, it comes back down. I know I keep circling around the same stuff, but it really comes down to the communication. Share knowledge. The reliability engineers, I'm going to go ahead and assume, but, they have that background in maintenance and reliability best practices, right? They're CMRP people. Use what you know, those KPIs that we talked about those metrics and get the vibe guys involved, and to the vibe guys and the condition monitoring people, get your engineers involved, right? I know it's easier said than done, right? We've always, you go into plants, and they've been trying that cross-functional teams thing for a long time, but boy, the plants that got it figured out and can get it clicking. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Well, on that point, I mean, I think you're just hitting on such a core element of any workplace environment, getting folks who have different ways of thinking or different skill sets to make sure they're talking to each other. Not like I know everything, you don't, but just in a collaborative way. Are there examples you've seen of whether it's like, hey, let's do a once a week happy hour, or whether it's more programmatic, like let's have a Monday 8 a.m. stand-up meeting? Are there any of those kind of programmatic ways that you've seen some of that communication and trust be fostered in those environments?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have a one-off story, like a success story, but yeah, it goes back to what I was saying. If there's no communication at all, right, then you fall into one of these key statistical insights about why 90% of RCM programs initiated are never implemented successfully, right? Or
right.
You can go down that rabbit hole and pull out any numbers of percentages of why things don't work when people don't communicate. But yeah, I have seen it. I've seen it where they sit down and they review the data together, right, and work together. So bring in those groups, and even the operators, educate the operators as well, and say, well, how long have you heard this going on, right? A lot of people just look at operators like, it's just that old crabby guy running that machine for the past 30 years. Well, that old crabby guy by that machine has a lot of tribal knowledge of standing by that machine for 30 years, right? Or seeing how things have changed, whether they've sped it up or different things, So talk to those folks.
That's good.
And help the process out. So that probably doesn't answer your question, Sebastian, but yeah,
well,
I've seen it where when they do talk, when they do talk, things go really well.
It's great. Well, it's been great talking to you. This has been Matt Knuth with SPM Instrument. Matt, thanks so much for this insightful conversation. I think your thoughts on just encouraging folks to kind of, quote, cross the aisles and talk is super helpful, across the shop floor. Also to kind of make sure education and knowledge sharing is a big part of what you're doing. And then, not to put words in your mouth, but at least as you're wading into new technologies and new fads, at least be thoughtful and be somewhat circumspect as you walk into that. So these Absolutely. Are great insights and really appreciate it. Well, to everybody listening, this podcast is all about helping engineers and really anyone take steps to be more successful in utilizing technology in practical ways in order to solve problems in engineering and manufacturing settings. So we hope that this has done that for you. Obviously, we're a company that provides RCA training and resources, materials, software. So if you need any of that, please check out reliability.com. If your company is looking to dig deeper, and if you need a software application, check out easyrca.com. So we're so glad to be on this journey with everybody and fostering a culture of learning new technologies and tools and insights from one another. And we want to just encourage everybody towards that. So that's all for today, folks. Let's continue on our journey together to make the world a more reliable place. And we'll see you on the next episode of Reliability 4.0. Take care, everyone.